Now, before I get into the next project here, which may or may not involve this dollar store cheap-ass pruning saw, I have one last restoration to do for you. And this might be the fastest one. Now, the difficulty of this old chalk line is that the hook broke off of it, and it's just a piece of bent wire being used on there now. Luckily, I recently had another chalk line die on me, but I still got a hook. So I'm going to cut this off, put a proper hook on it, so it's put together right. I'll show you once that's done. Yep, fastest restoration I've done so far. Let's reel that back in. I have to tighten that up properly so it fits, but lock that down. And I gotta get that chalk off my hands before I do anything else. Alright, now this next project. When it comes down to absolute bare bones, the basics for bushcraft survival, this is it. If you want to go right back to the Stone Age, this is a piece of horn. It's a wildebeest horn specifically, but this is a piece of horn. You make either horn or antler, you make a large knob on there. That's called a bopper. That is for striking large flakes off of a piece of flint, which is something I have very little practice with, and would like to get more practice with if I can learn how to identify different types of rock better. And on the other end of it, put a little notch there, so it's a little offset on that end. That's a pressure flaker for sharpening the edge of the stone once you have a large flake to work with to make a stone tool, knife, a scraper, what would it be, biface, like arrowheads, spear tips, that sort of thing. That's the absolute basic. That's all you need from ground zero. Most people don't want to go to ground zero, so you get a kit. You need to be able to build shelters, build what tools and furnishings you need. You know, everything you need to do. You need to dig holes, I got an entrenching tool. You need to chop trees, you got a hatchet. You need to drill holes, you got a drill. You need to do any sawing or cut wood, you got a saw. There's one thing missing from this kit. I ain't got a knife. So I need a knife to finish this kit. Where am I going to get a knife? Well, you can make a knife. You just need the right type of steel to do it. Fortunately, you can get that from either a saw blade or a file. Considering how much work I put into restoring all those files over in that pile over there, I don't want to sacrifice one of those. But since I got that pruning saw put back together and sharpened up and everything right now, I don't need this cheap one. It is a good spring steel. It's got a little bit of thickness to it. It can be hardened. I'll be able to baton with it. That's no problem. So yeah, I can temper it, I can harden it, I can do everything I need to do with it to make a knife. I can grind it into shape. I just have to get it off of this handle, mark out the shape I want the blade to be, cut it with the angle grinder, and, well, watched the process on another video recently on how to do this type of thing, so let's do it. Let's get a handle off of this thing and see what we're working with here. Nope. Actually, have to grab it properly, and just from the end. If it happens that between now and when I manage to get everything marked out, if it happens that I find a file that I'm willing to sacrifice, I might switch to that, just to have a little bit thicker blade. But that depends heavily on what I'm able to find. Okay, so there's not much of a tang on there. Alright. So I gotta figure out how long of a blade I need. And then let's measure that out here. I'll add 4 inches for the length of the handle for me to grip it. What do I want? About a 6-inch blade. So we want this to be, to see how big of a piece we can get out of this at 10 inches long. And what type of a shape we can get. There. I can do clip, straight back. That's going to be interesting. So at 10 inches, that'll be the point. See if this works. Oh yeah, I can draw that on there. I'll just use the existing curve, which will be fine. Clip point of some kind. And then straight back. And at 4 inches, how about we call it 11? We can go there. That's the maximum top edge we can do. We'll mark that line there. And it's just going to be 2 flat scales on it. So that's the maximum length I can get out of it. And I'm going to have to, let's see, 4 or 5 inches for a handle. I'll say more than 5 inches for a handle. So that goes to 13. So we'll say 6 inches for handle, 7 inches for blade. Reasonable. Reasonable. I can make it a little stronger as a clip point, mark it at 12. I'll figure something out there. I could U the top of the blade. So about a 1/2 inch up. Put scales on the handles and wrap it around. There's a lot of things I could do with this. And when I figure those things out, I will break out the angle grinder and start cutting. All right, well, a decision has been made on the material that's to be used for this. Turns out, although this saw blade would be very useful if I was making a fillet knife, it is too thin. to make a proper camping knife out of. Would that it were large enough to use a circular saw blade, because I have a lot of those and they're the right thickness. But I don't. They're not large enough to make a honkin' big knife out of. I did, however, find the file that I used the least out of all of them. From the J.A. Pan Company here back in the day. It is my least used file. And it is a hardened steel, which means I'm going to have to, confuse my roommates a little, putting in the oven to temper and soften it a little. It's going to be half an hour at 400 degrees, which is the same as I would use for a pound of frozen hamburger. But yeah, so I'm going to have to soften it. Then I'll take a surface wheel on the angle grinder and take the teeth off of the file. Once I have a flat, then I'll be able to cut a blade shape out of it and bevel a blade edge onto one side. It's going to be interesting. The handle will be, well, it'll be partially full tang and partially tail. So it's going to be an interesting project, but yeah, I'll put it in the oven and temper it, soften it up, and then I'll bring you back when I'm doing the grinding on the surface. Okay. All right. $400 for the size it goes is an hour and a half, supposed to be 2 hours. Okay, so put the file in the oven. 400 degrees for an hour and a half, and then I'll have to put it in for another half hour. And I'll bring you back when that 2 hours is up. There, 400 degrees for 2 hours. Comes up the right color. You want that straw color on there. It is annealed or tempered, whatever you want to call it. So now, because I'm lazy and impatient at the same time, next step, get out the bench grinder. I'm going to set up a jig to put this on so that I can set the angle so that I can grind the bevels in it as soon as I measure out where I want the bevels to be. Okay, we'll do that next, but I got to mow the lawn first. Okay, getting the stand here. That's had time to cool down to room temperature. Still has that nice color on it. Looks kind of like straw. I guess that's the name of it, is straw color. Anyway, the reason I have to do this, files are very hard and very brittle. It's tool steel. Let's get an angle on you so you can see everything here. So they're tool steel. That means they're very hard. If you chop something with them, you hit it with a hammer, they could break. Okay, you need more ductility. You need to soften the metal. Now, I don't know whether, because this is single process, you do this, you bevel it, and then you sharpen it, put a handle on it. I don't know whether it would be called tempering or annealing in this case, but I'm only doing it this once. I'm not making it as soft as mild steel, but it's softer than tool steel. It's going to be about what a knife should be. So I don't have to do it again, because I don't want to have to sit on my ass and wait for fucking however many hours for it to heat up, and then, yeah. So I will figure out a jig to put this on the bench grinder so that I can do the bevels on it. What I got to do is get something that sits flat on the bench grinder, but allows me to put, or has an angle on it and allows me to put this a little bit like that so I can cut the bevel. Then I can flip it over and do the same thing on the other edge to the same angle. And just mark a center line down there. And yeah, that'll be it. So I just gotta get a piece of wood with an angle on it. Before that, I'm gonna drill a hole in this, which is gonna be the only pin in the handle because it's gonna be blocked with a tail for the rest of it. But yeah, I'll drill a hole, I'll build a jig, I'll screw it to the jig, and I'll start. I'll show you the jig once I get it built. Okay, well, I got out the same bolts I've been using for the last project, the bike trailer there. Figure that'll be perfectly good to go through this this new knife, which means I can leave the same drill bit on the drill, not have to worry about that at all. Let's get you set up where you can see what's going on. I got the file with a backing board clamped into there. Get the line marked on there as to where the handle's going to end and the blade's going to start. So I'm going to put the hole here. The tail will hold it from, the back edge from the wood being pressed around it. But I'll put a hole here, close to the end of the handle. So there'll be at least one actual pin in it. And let's drill that out. Good thing about this is I'm the only one dealing, so I don't even have to center it. I can just drill straight through. Of course, need the Wiener Schleiden stuff here. About there, it's about center, that's good enough. Well, it marked it. I know these shitty bits are dull, but whatever. Alright. I guess I should use a good drill bit. Break into the quality stuff. Alright, can I read this to find the size? No, but I can just match it up. I can just match it up beside good bit. That one? It's that one. 15/64, I believe. Yeah, I gotta get into the good ones now. So shitty ones are all dull. Okay. Looks like it's going to be 1/4. Unless I have another bit that's actually sharp somewhere in here. Yeah. Try another shitty one, just for the sake of argument. Just to see. Before I wreck a good one. Same spot. So even after annealing / tempering this to soften it, it's having a hard time. I'll bring you back when the hole is actually drilled, because I don't know how long this is going to take. Well, one of two things has happened, and I'm thinking one is far more likely than the other. The less likely of these things is, well, none of my high-speed steel or none of my bits are sharp. And they're just not going to cut through anything. The more likely of these is this this file didn't quite anneal to the point I wanted it to. So, still pretty hard. Either way, I'm just going to push on. I cut this jig. It's just a board cut to the angle I want the bevel to be. And then keep that flat on the grinder. Move it across and I got the line marked in a few spots along here for center. Well, you can see it, but it's there. Come on. Yeah, there's a line there you can see. That's the center line. So I got the angle for the bevel. And I'm going to eat supper. Then I will go to bench grinder, start putting a bevel on it. I do have a good handle material. I do have 2-part epoxy to put the handle on, and the shape of the handle will help it stay on, so I'm not too worried about not having a hole drilled through it. So I got this really good ash hardwood. That I have some smaller pieces of it too, but it's more than enough to make. Look at that! It's more than enough to make scales for handles. It was originally meant to be I don't know what it was originally meant to be, but it was given to me, and this is what I'm going to use it for. All right. Next time I see you, we'll be on the bench grinder.